There are a lot of really good MLB free agents that still haven't signed a contract. Guys like Kyle Tucker, Bo Bichette, Framber Valdez, Alex Bregman, and more. So I want to find the best fit for the 10 best remaining MLB free agents. If you guys are not already, please subscribe to the channel down below and don't forget to drop this video a like. Also, let me know in the comment section where you think these MLB free agents are going to sign. I'm going to keep this list very realistic. Like Kyle Tucker's a great fit for the Pittsburgh Pirates or the Cleveland Guardians, but we know at the end of the day, neither of those teams are going to put up the money to actually sign him. So here we go. We got the best realistic fit for the top 10 remaining free agents. And we are going to start out with Kyle Tucker. He's still blatantly the best free agent available. He was the best free agent available when the offseason began. But I feel like the baseball world maybe has swung a little bit too negatively on Kyle Tucker. I get that when a guy goes into the offseason kind of looking for a 10, possibly 12-year contract, 300, 400, 500 million dollars, you had to nitpick a little bit. And when you do nitpick Kyle Tucker, you can say things like, okay, his bat speed isn't elite. He hasn't been that durable over the last few years. He doesn't really play great defense at a premium position. So there are definitely some reasons here why you wouldn't maybe give Kyle Tucker the mega monster super contract. But at the same time, since 2023, he's the 7th best hitter in baseball on a per at-bat basis with minimum 1,000 plate appearances. And oddly enough, he's taken more plate appearances over the last 3 years than Yordan Alvarez, Corey Seager, or Ronald Acuna Jr. So while some ticky-tack injuries have occurred and made Tucker miss some time, it's really not as bad as some other guys we consider to be elite. Honestly, also, Corey Seager is a funny comp at this moment for Tucker. There's a great tweet here from my guy AT who showed what these guys did in their careers, Tucker and Seager, before reaching free agency, and it is really funny to see how similar they were at the plate in basically every single category their entire careers before they hit the open market. Seager did play significantly fewer games. He had more serious injuries than Tucker ever has, and he also had to deal with the COVID season, so he lost 100 games for that one. But Seager still got the super big mega contract I think Tucker went into this offseason possibly expecting. But then, at the same time, Seager also is a shortstop. He can play shortstop defense. He's played shortstop defense very well over the course of his career. When you know he can't play shortstop anymore, he can easily slide to third base to make the back end of any huge contract like that a bit more palatable. And he's also dealt with some injuries killing a lot of time for him early on in this Rangers contract. So maybe that's kind of a signal to the rest of the league. Maybe you don't give Tucker the 10-year deal. So if the dream of the mega contract is dead, that lets a lot more teams kind of in on the Kyle Tucker bidding. It really seemed like it was just the Blue Jays at the beginning of the offseason because they seemed like the only team that had the money and the motivation to give Tucker the monster deal. But now that we could be looking at something like a 5, 6, 7-year deal, a team like the Dodgers who could use a corner outfielder, the Yankees and the Phillies probably should both be involved in this, but I don't see them being involved so far. So again, we go back to these 3 teams, the Dodgers, the Blue Jays, and the Mets. And of them all, the Toronto Blue Jays are the best fit. Heading into next season right now, their corner outfield spots are occupied by Anthony Santander and Nathan Lucas. I think those are both fine players. I expect a bounce back for Santander, but if the Blue Jays have World Series aspirations, they could use another bat. They could use some more thump in that lineup. And with George Springer only having 1 more year at his big contract, the Blue Jays have the money to afford it and kind of outbid either of these 2 teams, the Mets and the Dodgers, who have shown they're not that willing to go super out of their comfort zone to get a guy like Kyle Tucker. Next up, we have Alex Bregman. Bregman is just such a rock-solid baseball player. You have plate discipline, you have just enough power, you have good defense, you have a good locker room presence. He doesn't offer the offensive ceiling as guys like Kyle Tucker and Bo Bichette, definitely not. But again, this is someone that's a rock and should age very well. Also, I think there's this public perception that Alex Bregman fell off because those years in 2018 and 2019, he was just simply one of the best players in baseball. But since 2021, he's accumulated 20 WAR over 5 years. He's been 25% better than league average hitter based on WRC+. Again, he's a great defensive player at third base. It seems like he'll be able to play good third base in perpetuity, even if he signs a 4 or 5 year contract. He's got 350 on base percentage over the last 5 years, and there were so many great stories and reports and even just moments that we got to see of him interacting with guys like Roman Anthony and Marcelo Meyer last year, Christian Campbell, being a good veteran leader, helping young players, keeping guys accountable, making sure they're working hard. He seems like the exact kind of guy you'd want in your clubhouse. And with that being said, there's a lot of teams right now that could really use a third baseman. Teams who don't like to spend money like the Seattle Mariners and Cincinnati Reds, with a good few young players on there looking to make a splash. Team like the Reds want to get to the next level. Team like the Mariners want to get over the hump. I wish they'd be in on Alex Bregman. That's kind of a believe it when I see it situation. Then you have teams like the Yankees and the Phillies who have a veteran third baseman under contract right now in Ryan McMahon and Alec Boehm, each for 1 more year. but Alex Bregman would be a huge upgrade over them and just a better player, really help those teams who've been kind of stuck at the same level for the last few years. But at the end of the day, Alex Bregman's going back to Boston. That's the best fit for him. They have the gaping hole at third base. They have money to spend. They have all the young players that got to know him last year and got to kind of acknowledge him as a leader. It's just a match made in heaven. It's the best fit. It's what's going to happen. No doubt about that. Next up, we have Bo Bichette. Now, on this channel, I have said I don't particularly love Bo as a free agent, mostly because we have some scary lower body injuries over the last few years. We have a rapidly declining sprint speed. We don't have good defense, and now we know that Bo is being viewed this offseason more as a second baseman than a shortstop, which I think is actually good for him because I don't think he's any kind of defensive shortstop, but maybe he can be an okay defensive second baseman at this point. And I still do love the hit tool. There's really not many players in the league who have a better bat-to-ball ability than Bo Bichette does. But I am a little bit concerned if he were to get a 6, 7, 8-year deal, how that hit tool where he focuses on the opposite field and hitting for average would age. That being said, a short-term deal, a 3, a 4, a 5-year deal, I suddenly like Bo a lot more because he's only going to be 28 years old opening day next year. And it looks like we're going to get a good hitter for a good bit of time. But at the beginning of the offseason, he was being compared to the contracts given to Willie Adames and Dansby Swanson, something like 7 years at $25 million AAV. And again, if he can't play shortstop defense, he's not going to get that deal. And right now it looks like he's probably not going to get that deal. So with those contract demands possibly coming down a little bit, it lets a lot more teams into the mix to sign Bo Bichette. Toronto, of course, still leads the charge, but they can kind of get by in their middle infield right now with Andres Jimenez moving to shortstop, Ernie Clement as the everyday second baseman, and Leo Jimenez on the bench, kind of being the mix and match middle infielder who has some pretty good batted ball data and stats in the upper minors. Then you get a big mix of teams here, like the Dodgers, the Giants, and the Red Sox, who haven't needed second base and probably have a lot of money to spend and could take a shot on Bo again for a bit of a shorter deal. Then again, the Mariners, they have this need on their infield. They have the need for another bat. Bo would be a great fit there. I don't really see them spending the money. And you guys are going to hate me. I think the best fit for Bo Bichette is actually the Los Angeles Dodgers. They have a pitiful second base situation right now because the expectations that Tommy Edman and Hyun-Sung Kim vie for that job. But Tommy Edman's also probably the Dodgers' best option in center field. And if it's not him, it's Andy Pajes, in which case Tommy Edman would move to a corner. So the Dodgers really have a big need to probably add a second baseman to this roster, just not knowing what Hyun-Sung Kim is. Ironically, their lineup could use a little bit more depth. You saw how bad their lineup kind of got exposed through most of the playoffs last season and really fell off a cliff fast after the big dudes at the top. Bo would help that a bunch. And really, this will just be a staring contest, probably between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays for Bo and Kyle Tucker. When one team jumps on one, maybe the other jumps on the other. Maybe the Blue Jays have enough money to get both. Bo is still a great fit there, of course. But in terms of the absolute best fit, the Dodgers have the biggest need and the money to spend. That's a great fit. All right, now moving on, we have Cody Bellinger. And it's kind of funny to think that this is the 4th out of 5 off seasons where Cody Bellinger is technically available. He was non-tendered by the Dodgers after the 2022 season, signed a 1-year deal with the Cubs. After that 1-year prove-it deal with the Cubs, he declined his qualifying offer and accepted a 3-year deal from the Cubs again with opt-outs after each of the first 2 seasons. He opted into that Cubs deal after the first season, then after opting in, was traded to the Yankees for a bag of balls just because the Yankees were willing to take on the money of Bellinger's contract. And now, after this season, Bellinger declined the player option, and he's available again. So again, this is the 4th time in the last 5 years you could have had Cody Bellinger. So it's kind of crazy to me that he's still out there seeking a big long-term contract. It's been reported he was out there looking for 5 for $150 when we have years of proof now that no team is willing to give it to him. And it makes sense why they won't. He is a flawed player. He does a lot of things well. Great defender and a corner outfielder. Makes the most out of his contact with pull fly balls. Makes tons of contact. Good swing decisions. Good plate discipline. But the power metrics leave a lot to be desired, and there are definitely some questions as to how Cody Bellinger's bat will age. So again, he's another guy. He's kind of drifting back towards his 3 or 4 year deal. And I kind of love Cody Bellinger on a 3 or 4 year deal. When he was looking for 5 or 6, I was scared about that. But 3 or 4, I like it a lot. And I think a lot of the front offices are starting to like that as well. Especially because he fits on so many teams just from really good versatility. He's an incredible corner outfield defender, has an awesome arm. He could play center field for you in a pinch, or if you're just okay with average defense from your center fielder, and he can still play first base very well. He's a lefty bat, doesn't have a big platoon split. He fits really, really well in a team like the Mets, who have an opening at every single position, basically, I just said to you guys. And they've been trying to prioritize versatility and defense this offseason. He fits for the Phillies, who right now have Adolis Garcia and Brandon Marsh as their outfielders with Justin Crawford, but I don't know if they're spending more on outfield. He also fits back with the Dodgers. I said before how they could use a corner outfielder. The Diamondbacks are desperate for outfield help right now. Of course, he fits in the Blue Jays as well if they miss out on Kyle Tucker. But I think the best fit for Cody Bellinger is back with those Arizona Diamondbacks. Their current outfield situation is vile right now outside of Corbin Carroll. Besides him, they're currently slotted to try and play Blaze Alexander, who's been a career infielder in the outfield, Alec Thomas, Lourdes Gurriel's hurt right now. A chaotic bench of outfielders you don't really want to be playing outfield for you if you're trying to get a playoff spot in any way, shape, or form. And there's a good chance that Bellinger could take a bit softer of a contract, similar to what Corbin Burns did last offseason with the Diamondbacks, because he's from the Arizona area. You can spend the whole year there, the season, spring training, the offseason, build up a family, plant some roots in the place that you grew up. I don't know, maybe I'm being corny, maybe I'm being sappy, but it does make sense that if Bellinger's going to sign for less than he wanted to anyway, go home to do it. Next up is Ranger Suarez. If you guys want to talk about the free agent that we've heard nothing about, there is not a word, a peep, a murmur on Ranger Suarez's market right now. I do feel like that makes a bit of sense because the whole league is probably a little bit scared of Ranger Suarez, who throws in the low 90s, who doesn't get a ton of strikeouts, and who has some genuine durability concerns, never going above 160 innings pitched in his career. Also, Ranger Suarez has a qualifying offer attached to him, so if any team wants to sign Ranger Suarez, they have to sacrifice at least one draft pick. But still, a guy like Ranger Suarez looks like a pretty reliable mid-rotation guy, at least for the next few years. Almost every single contending team in the league could use a reliable mid-rotation starter. But all that being said, the best fit and the team he's going to wind up signing with is back with the Phillies because of that qualifying offer. Similar to what just happened with Michael King and Pete Alonso last year, if the market is kind of down on a player long term and they have the qualifying offer, they probably want another chance to prove their worth, another season to prove their worth. So he'll sign a deal with the Phillies that allows him to opt out after the first year. If he pitches well, he opts out, he goes back to the market. If he doesn't pitch well, he stays on that deal. No team is going to give Ranger Suarez the opportunity to opt out after 1 year if they're giving up the assets to sign him. So him and the Phillies, it's just a match right now. It's going to happen. Now we have the guy in this list that's most likely the first one to sign a contract, and that's Tatsuya Imai coming over from Japan. And Imai is probably going to sign first because his posting window ends on January 2nd. That means that he has to be signed, done, physical, everything wrapped up by January 2nd. So I think he's signing in this week between Christmas and New Year's. In fact, maybe he's signing by the time you guys watch this video. We'll see if it even makes it to the final cut. But as the offseason went along, the Yankees were the team that were most heavily linked to Imai. Maybe that's just because their fans are the loudest on social media, but now we've had reports over the last few days that they might not really be that interested. Could be a smokescreen, but Brian Cashman was kind of non-committal on if they actually took a formal meeting with him, and then Jack Curry went on yes, saying that he didn't think it was going to happen.
And when I asked him about whether or not he had talked to Boris about Bellinger, he said yes, and I said, how about Imai too? And he didn't really answer the question, so as far as Imai is concerned, I would say stay tuned. I'm not sure that there is going to be a connection with the Yankees.
Curry's usually very, very plugged into all things Yankees. Him going out on television saying this is not going to happen, I kind of believe him at this point. And there were a lot of rumors circulating at the beginning of the offseason that Imai's market was going to be so good, his contract could stretch around 8 years, $200 million, something like a pretty elite starting pitcher. I don't think he's that good. I talked about him a lot in my 5 free agents I don't like video, and that's linked below in the description, along with my 5 most underrated free agents this offseason. But I am starting to question whether or not Imai actually gets the 8 for 200, and if he gets less than that, I might start to like him a lot more. But I digress. The fits for him are, besides the Yankees, the Cubs desperately could use a starting pitcher and could really use some velocity. The Mets could really use a starting pitcher with any kind of upside right now because they have Nolan McLean and just a glut of kind of chaos in the middle of their rotation. The Phillies also need another pitcher with uncertainty surrounding Zach Wheeler and Ranger Suarez not under contract. The Orioles could really use another guy in their rotation too after acquiring Shane Baz, but still really needing just some beef in that rotation. But the best fit for Imai is the Mets. The Mets have been very reluctant in the Steve Cohen era to not sign free agents who have qualifying offers attached to them. In fact, Juan Soto was the only free agent the Mets have signed under Steve Cohen or David Stearns that had a qualifying offer attached to them. And like I said, the Mets need any kind of shot for upside in this rotation they could find. And Imai still throws 97. He still probably has a plus slider, even though it's a very weird backwards shape. I think the floor is pretty solid as like a high 3s ERA guy. The ceiling, maybe he could, best case scenario, be a 2. I think he's more like a 3. But I can see the vision, and this is just the best fit right now. We're in need, meet to need. Now to finish off this run of starting pitchers, we have Framber Valdez, and this is another guy. Where is his market right now? I understand there are some genuine concerns with Valdez. We've had the personality stuff, the cross-up that happened late last year that went incredibly viral. His command tends to come and go at times. He doesn't strike out the most hitters in the league. He sometimes has walk issues. He tends to run a pretty high whip. Lots of guys get on base. And there's also just so many miles on that arm. Like, I am worried about a guy like Framber, who's just, the injury hasn't come yet. I know that's kind of counterintuitive, but it's just that little scary thing in my mind. And then some people are scared the fact that he had a ERA at 6 over his last 10 starts of the season this year. don't care about that at all. I do think the baseball world is now swung way too hard against Framber Valdez. Like, I think we're overthinking this one a little bit. Since 2021, Framber has a 3.2 ERA with over a 60% ground ball rate in 900 innings pitched. For this last era of baseball, this chunk of time, he's been one of the most consistent, reliable starting pitchers in the whole game. And guys like Framber Valdez, who can just throw sinker after sinker after sinker, are kind of the guys who wind up just sticking around forever. And he still has a great curveball that misses tons of bats, that's platoon neutral. And as a left-handed sinker baller, his 94-mile-an-hour average sinker velocity is actually above league average. So this is still, I think, a very good starting pitcher. It's similar fits as all the other arms on this list: the Mets, the Cubs, the Yankees, the Phillies, the Orioles. The Astros, weirdly, they're not linked to him at all, even though he's been a franchise stalwart for them. But the best fit for Framber Valdez is the Orioles. He gives the best floor out of all these starting pitchers out there. And the Orioles have chaos at the top in Kyle Brash and Shane Baz. Big stuff right there. Just made a big bet on Baz, trading a bunch of prospects to get him. But Framber is a veteran that just takes the pressure off everybody in there. He's showing up there if he's healthy again. 200 innings, 6-7 innings a start, ground ball after ground ball after ground ball. He just steadies you up. He helps you with your foundation a lot. And we're at the point in the offseason where I don't know if he gets the mega contract. You could probably sneak him in for 4, 5, 6 years at this point. Even still, 7, I don't know, maybe I guess the Orioles seem like they're ready to spend like drunken sailors this offseason. You need a guy that can shore up your entire rotation, and Framber Valdez can do that. Next up, we have Eugenio Suarez, a real agent of chaos in this free agent class. And I shared this graphic in a video I made a few weeks ago about Eugenio Suarez, showing just how awful his first and second half splits were. When he was with the Diamondbacks, he was one of the best power hitters in baseball last year. The second he got to the Mariners in Seattle, he was almost unplayable. He became kind of a black hole for them on this whole playoff race. And that was very surprising. He was one of the most coveted players at the trade deadline. And there are a lot of players who go to Seattle and don't hit well. But Eugenio had played there before for kind of a while and hit pretty well there too. So it was a surprise to see him go to Seattle and struggle. That being said, it's easy to forget that he got hit by a pitch on his wrist just a few days before the trade actually went down. He might have been playing with a bad wrist the whole second half. We know how much power hitters rely on their wrists. So I still kind of want to believe that Eugenio Suarez can mash. I don't know where the on-base percentage is going to wind up. I do not know where the defense is going to wind up. I kind of question if contending teams actually treat him as a third baseman on the open market. I think the Mariners are still a fit. I think they will treat him as a third baseman because they already re-signed Josh Naylor and need a third baseman. I also kind of love a reunion with the Reds in Cincinnati. Again, they're a team that could just use a veteran bat, an infusion of reliable power into that order. I think he could do great things for a young team as well as a leader. The Mets are also on the record right now saying they want a guy that can play some first base, who can also hit right-handed. And there's probably a good chance a small market team can jump in on Suarez, just in the fact that I don't know if he's getting more than a 2-year deal. With all that being said, the Mets are the best fit just simply for the literal reason that they've gotten out publicly and said that they want a first baseman who can also hit right-handed. That might have been Pete Alonso. That's neither here nor there. So that's 2 big check marks for Suarez. I know he hasn't played much first base, but the Mets have Brett Baty, a good defensive third baseman. Suarez, some first base, some DH, some third base. He could just move around to all those spots, just like Polanco can do, just like Baty can do with third and second. This would be a good step for the Mets building the versatile team they want, and they need to replace a lot of home runs without Pete Alonso, and Suarez will help with that. Next up, we have Kazuma Okamoto, whose market's also a big mystery right now. Not really hearing anything about which teams are going after him, how big the contract's expected to be, and his posting window ends only 2 days after Tatsuya Imai, so Kazuma Okamoto has to sign with the team by January 4th. The only team that there's been heavily noise linked with Okamoto so far are the Angels, and I guess that makes sense. I don't know, why not, right? We also have the Ryan O'Hearn contract happening recently with the Pirates. There's some reports that Okamoto and O'Hearn's contract could be very much in the same range. Something like 2 years, $30 million, maybe a teeny bit more for Okamoto, maybe not. Again, really, we don't know right now. And I like him as a free agent. I think he has some underrated power. He has great bat-to-ball ability. He played mostly third base with the Yomiuri Giants in the MPB, but I think coming over here, he'll be primarily a first baseman. But I think he could be a plus defender at first. And he's been one of the most decorated players in the MPB over the last few years. Multiple home run crowns, part of some very successful Giants teams. Like he's a dude, certifiable dude, ball player. I don't know how much upside there is in Okamoto though, but there's definitely a really solid floor. I think you're getting a rock solid 2 to 3 WAR player here, something like 15 to 18 home runs, something like a 270 batting average, a 340 on base. Like it's going to be a good solid player. If I look around the league right now, teams that could use a good solid player, the Padres are desperate for another good solid player. As of right now, the Padres opening day bench is projected to be Luis Campusano as the backup catcher, Mason McCoy as the backup infielder, Will Wagner's another backup infielder, and Bryce Johnson's a backup outfielder. This team could use another guy, especially because with that projected bench, Sung Moon Song, who they just signed out of the KBO, is projected to be a starter. I don't really know how Sung Moon Song's going to wind up. He was a KBO late bloomer. Don't know how the bat's going to translate over. The contract says most major league teams didn't really see him as an impact bat, a starting caliber player. The Padres can just use, again, a guy. You can move Jake Cronenworth around. You don't want to play Gavin Sheets against lefties. Getting a right-handed bat like Okamoto, who could be a great first base defender, is awesome for them. They need to raise the floor of the back end of this roster, and Okamoto can do that for not very much money. Last up on the list, and again, we did this all by Feinstein's list. Maybe I do something in the future where I start to react to some of these lists, if that's something you guys want to see on this channel. But we have Luis Arias, the 10th most valuable free agent left. Not Zach Gallen, not JT Realmuto. Again, Luis Arias, 10th best free agent left apparently. But I'm kind of joking around. I think the pendulum has also swung a little bit too far against Arias and like the analytics baseball community. At the end of the day, he is just a good hitter. He's just a very strange, super specific roster fit. You just have to squeeze a first baseman onto your team. It's only going to hit 5 to 10 home runs. You're kind of expecting more power from first base, so you'll need the rest of your lineup to pick up the power slack there. And on top of that, while Arias is a contact player, he's not a good base runner. He's not a particularly fast base runner. And he's also not a good defensive player. You usually get that from your contact players. So again, good hitter, bad fit. 777 career OPS is good, but it's only a 730 OPS over the last 2 years, so it does seem like maybe the league has figured out Arias a little bit. I still think he can be an asset into the right contending lineup, a guy in the bottom third of the order who knows just going to hit, keep the line moving, a good chance for RBIs because the ball is just going to be in play a lot. I also kind of doubt at this point if a contending team is going to try and fit him on their roster based on all the reasons I just said. Well, again, acknowledging he is still a good player, but I think he's going to wind up with kind of a bad, funny, memeable team. To me, it's either the Rockies or the Angels, truthfully. I think it's going to be the Rockies. I think it's kind of a match made in heaven where the Rockies can be like, look, we got Luis Arias, one of the highest batting averages in the league. And Luis Arias could be, look, I'm playing for the Rockies. I might hit 370 this year. I just think that's kind of a match made in heaven. My favorite fit here. And you know what? Might as well just get a veteran presence on this Rockies team. You have new leadership in place. Try to just bring any kind of sustainability to this club. And I think a lot of players in the league respect Arias, and they should because he is a good hitter. Get him in there. Let him be kind of the leader for a young squad. But all right, thank you guys so much. That's the best fits for the 10 best remaining free agents. Let me know in the comments where you think a lot of these guys fit. If you think I'm right, if you think I'm wrong, if you think I'm being ridiculous. Just again, let me know. I'm down for all the comments you guys want. But thank you so much for being here. Support in the last few videos has been great. I'll see you next time.